Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at the 50/50 Accelerator podcast. And my guest today is Cynthia Kay from CK and Company. And she has a media production company. Has been doing it for, I don't know, 40 years, has 11 people in the organization. And when we were doing our pre-interview, we had a fascinating conversation. And I know she's going to be just an unbelievable guest. And we're really lucky to have her here today. So let's bring Cynthia on. Hi, Cynthia. How are you today?
I am well, and thank you so much for that kind introduction.
I was very impressed with our conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, and I've been looking forward to today. So I'm very happy to have you.
Thank
So
you.
when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, you were telling me about your early partnership experience and how it was a disaster. So can you tell us that story?
You learn the most from the things that don't work. I've often said that. And when I started the business, I actually started it with a partner. And I think I had this notion that I needed someone to complement the skills that I didn't have. So I had worked in broadcasting and had done a lot of production, investigative reporting, live talk shows. I wasn't as maybe techy as the business was because you have people who do that. So when I started the media production company, I thought, you know what? I really need someone who's got more technical knowledge than I do. And it happened that I was working with someone and I thought, what a perfect compliment. I can do this part of it. He can do that part of it. And you put it together and it's great. What I missed in all of that is that partnerships are, I'm going to say, even more critical sometimes than marriages because it's like a marriage and you spend more time with that person than frankly you do with your family. So we started the business out and I thought I had asked all the right questions. And frankly, I did it right on the legal side. Set the corporation up, had a partnership agreement, did all that checklist stuff that everybody tells you you're supposed to do. What I didn't consider were the soft skills, the personality differences, attitudes of people. And frankly, a few years into the partnership, it started to be a problem because I wanted to move ahead and was thinking, let's grow this business. And he wanted to keep it really small. And it was one of those things that I think you don't think about asking those questions, right? And so what I felt was that I really needed to refocus. And so I came up with this concept as I was thinking back. By the way, I bought him out. It was somewhat painful, but actually we did it in about 75 days. And we even went to business counseling before. We went to like a business counselor to help us work out our differences, and that didn't work. So when we decided that it was time, I went back later and thought about it and thought, what are the questions I should have asked? What
So
are
can
the
I
things I did?
interrupt you for a second, Cynthia?
Sure.
So this sounds to me, and this is a problem I see with even just hiring people, is that you two had a major values mismatch.
Yeah, we did.
And it likely would have served you well had you actually figured out what your values were and helped him figure out what his values were. And you would have likely seen a values mismatch, which would have told you this
Mhm.
partnership isn't going to work.
Yeah.
The complementary skill thing you have right on the nose, because if you're
Yeah.
going to do a partnership, they have to have complementary skills. Otherwise, why do a partnership? But
No,
that's just the first thing.
you're 100%. I think maybe some of that is the being the naive person as a younger person that you go, oh, we can work these things out. And we couldn't work them out.
Well,
And
there's two things there I think that were moving against you. And making that mistake is perfectly rational, especially 30 or 40 years ago. And the reason, very simply, is number one, you're a woman.
Oh, that's
Women,
interesting.
more often than men, way more often than men, in my experience, think they need partners.
That's an interesting concept, and I would tell you that maybe you're right. I don't know what the stats are on that, but I do
It's a
think
very big number.
isn't a big number?
It's a
Okay.
very big number. And the other issue is you were young.
Yeah.
And when you're young, you're inexperienced. You say, I need to get somebody with experience. And the truth is, sometimes that works out, but most of the time it doesn't because the
Mhm.
way we choose that experience, we might get the experience, but we don't get the culture right, which is what you just said.
Yeah. And the thing that I learned about all of this, and in fact, I developed this concept, I call it the business prenup. And I have a list of questions that I think you need to ask. And some of them may seem like simple things, but things like when you disagree, how does that person deal with conflict? Other things like when decisions need to be made, is that person collaborative? Do they listen to you? Do they and frankly, I one of the things I did really was I was the majority owner. So in the long run, I was able to get myself out of the
So that's a
situation.
relatively easy way to get out if you
Yes,
have 50-50
absolutely.
partnerships
Yeah.
often don't make sense.
I would agree with you. But I think where we really need to think about partnerships, and I would agree with you, it's a daunting task to start a business. I took out a home equity loan on my house and signed a personal guarantee, and I was taking a lot of risk. And so you do want to surround yourself with good people, but maybe you don't need to be a partner with those people. Maybe that's expertise you can buy.
You can
And
hire
that's what
almost,
I came to.
yeah. Some people, partnerships they live with, they can't do without. And
Right.
with most private business owners, are actually better off being solos and
I
hiring
agree.
the people they need.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's something that over the years, I was glad that I made the transition early enough in the career of the business before I had gotten too far into it. Because once you start doing things like buying buildings together and I mean, making all of those investments, then you've got more things to deal with.
Yes.
So I think, but I do think I just recently had the experience where I went and visited two women business owners, and I will tell you, they've got it right. But what they have is very unique. You don't find it a lot. They are great partners and have been great partners. But I think you really need to approach partnerships with a lot of skepticism. And that's what I say to people starting a business today. Do you really need that person? Are you better off to keep that as a a contract relationship or an employee that you hire? Do you really need them on your staff?
Yeah,
So,
those are really good questions to ask. You said something which is really cool because I use that term all the time. When I call the shareholders agreement the partnership prenup.
yeah.
And is while and the reason you want to do that while you're forming your business is
Mhm.
because you're getting along. If you
Yes.
try to do a shareholders agreement when you're not getting along, the chances of that being successful and the business not being blown up has just become way less than if you done at the beginning of the business.
The other thing that I think about too is I think you're excited. People are excited when they want to start a business and they want to make it work. And so sometimes people also say things to please the other person. And so you have to, there's where you want to believe the person, and they probably are saying it in the best possible light. But long term, they really can't stick to it.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of it too that I see with partnerships is that if you have, for example, at the time I was single, right? And this was a person who got married and started having children. And I mean, there are different needs there. And how are you going to accommodate? Those are questions you need to ask. How are you going to accommodate dealing with family issues? How are you going to deal with when things don't go right and you might need to take a salary reduction? How are you going? All you have to think of all the bad things that will happen and think about how you would deal with them so that you don't have to do it when you find yourself in a tough spot. And the truth of it is, if you're in business for any length of time, you are going to hit rough patches. It's just part of the job.
Yep. And it's really too bad attorneys have not really figured out how to help their clients form partnerships because they have no clue what to ask. It's basically for them, this is my standard form and this is how we do it.
Yeah. Hopefully, people have a team of good people who will ask those questions. And I guess I would tell you anybody who comes to you with a standard form is probably not somebody you want to work with because they're not looking at you as a unique entity. Might need to find some new resources.
The challenge with an attorney that comes with their standard form is you don't know it's their standard form.
And
It's
that's
just
probably
it's
true.
a partnership agreement, and a partnership agreement has got a lot of standard stuff in it. But
Mhm.
before you get to the partnership agreement, it would be really useful for the attorney, and they don't do this because that's not what they're trained to do, to ask the questions. Startups, have a couple of problems. One is they don't have any money.
That's true. Yeah.
So they can't afford, and I'm talking about the vast majority of the startups. I'm not talking about the venture funded ones in Silicon
Right.
Valley or in Boston.
Absolutely.
They don't have any money. So as a result, they can't afford to hire competent advice when they're starting. And on top of that, as Michael Gerber likes to say, most entrepreneurs are, or most business owners are entrepreneurs, or business owners having an entrepreneurial cramp, or technicians having an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial cramp, which I
Yeah.
find true. And as a result, they don't know where to go for advice.
But I will tell you, I think the reason that I was able to successfully get out of the business and do it well is that I had a great attorney who actually took the time. And then, frankly, when negotiating the buyout, also was kind enough because he was
Oops, you just frozen, Cynthia. Cynthia, you're frozen.
for that client. And I will say, my attorneys did a great job. We did a good job of dissolving the partnership and being able to move on. And unfortunately, that helped me to just move on. And I think at that point, to your comment about thinking that you need someone, I thought I did need someone. And what I discovered very soon after I bought my partner out is that I really didn't need them. So some of it's a mind thing.
Well, it's a mind thing.
Yeah.
It's not what we need and what we think we need are
Yeah.
often two different things. and,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
in my experience, if one partner, this is especially true with a partner who's 15, 20 years older than their other partner. And you'll find that the junior partner and the senior partner, like it's time for retirement, get into a war because the senior partner wants as much money as they possibly can. And the junior partner is concerned about affording to buy out.
Yeah. I feel like some of that is going away. It's really interesting. There are a number of organizations that I know that had shareholder partners who are becoming ESOPs. And that's fascinating because it puts everybody more on that even platform. But
Actually,
I
my next recording is with an ESOP expert.
really,
Mm.
that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and the interesting thing about ESOPs, this is where another challenge comes in. A, they're complicated. B,
Yes,
they're
they are.
expensive. And C, they
Yes.
really don't work unless you have 25 or more employees.
Yeah, you absolutely. I can tell you it would not have worked in my organization. We're not, because I actually researched it, but we're not big enough.
Yeah, not
And
big
so
enough.
there are some,
You really
yeah,
need
yeah,
25 people.
yeah. There's some things, there's some unique challenges that smaller entities have, but that doesn't mean we can't overcome them. We just have to be more creative, frankly.
Yeah. Let's talk about hiring a little bit because that's like a first cousin to partnerships because you're essentially hiring a partner when you do a partner. What have you learned about hiring over the years?
I actually have, that is part art and part science. Here's what I have learned. I think it's really important. that when you are hiring people, you have the opportunity to see them at work. And I will say that one of the things that we have done is we have actually paid people to come in and work with us for a week. Because when you see someone actually working, what they say they can do and what they can do, completely different.
So
We
can I just
also,
stop you here for a second?
yeah,
Because this, you hit a really important point, which I don't want to gloss over.
okay.
And that is paying the people who you're putting on a test. Too many companies expect potential employees to give them 1, 2, 3, maybe a whole week of time free. Even if you
No,
bring somebody in for 4 hours, you need to pay them for the 4 hours. You bring them in for a
I
day,
do.
you need to pay them for a day. Number one, it's the law that you have to. And number two, it's only the ethical thing to do. And if you don't do it, you're starting off on the wrong foot.
We even pay interns. We have a wonderful partnership with a university here.
Yeah,
And we have brought in 4 of my employees have come from programs where they came and they worked with us for 3 months or 6 months, that whatever their graduation requirement was, but we paid them while they were here. And the work we
sure.
asked them to do was not meaningless tasks. It
Right.
was, can you think? Can you actually create something?
Right.
I think, and I know that doesn't always work because if you're asking someone to come from another job to your job, there's that period of time in there. But there's where, as one example, we hired someone on a Saturday. We were actually doing an ESOP meeting and we hired him to come in and work with our crew. And it was fascinating because it was immediately obvious that this person had talent. But I think I've gotten burned a couple of times by people who have shown me work that I later discovered wasn't their work. They
Yeah.
worked on it, but they
But
really
but
didn't
there's
do it.
something else also, Cynthia, which I think is really important, is that what you're talking about are technical skills.
Sure.
And technical skills for me are just the first screen
Oh,
before I
yeah.
hire somebody. After that, then I start looking, are they willing to do the activities that will make them successful in the job?
Yeah.
And for example, I'm hiring a salesperson and they need to cold call. If they don't have the right personality, they aren't going to do cold calls no matter how hard I hit them with the baseball bat.
Sure.
And the other thing, which is actually the most important thing, is I believe that all companies need to be clear about their values and have
Yes.
clarifying statements around their values for what they mean. And those
Mm.
last two things, in my experience, are much more indicative of the long-term success of a potential team member than their
Mhm.
technical skills, because I can always teach technical.
You know what I say? I say I can teach someone to punch the buttons, but I can't teach them to think. One way that
Right.
I get around what you just talked about is when we're looking to hire, I generally don't meet the candidates right away. I have my team sit down with them, the people that they're going to work with,
Oh,
and I
sure.
have them do it. And it's great.
So have you trained your people how to interview effectively?
Yes.
See, that's
Yeah,
the
I have.
key. Too many companies I see, they do exactly what you said, but they don't give the people any training. So happens is the interview turns out that the
Mm.
potential job holder is actually listening to a monologue about how great that person is.
Yeah.
It happens
Yeah.
more often than you might think.
I think the other side, and this may be an advantage, is because of what we do as a communications company, we talk a lot about asking questions, about
Yes.
listening, about hearing the meaning behind the words. So I think maybe that's a benefit, but I think where some people, if someone doesn't know how to do this, one of the things that they could start to do, which I have done, is when I was doing interviews, is bringing them in and then modeling behavior. And then afterwards saying, okay, what did you hear? Why did I ask that question? When I asked that, were you paying attention to the body language of the person? So it's like you constantly have to be teaching.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But it sounds like you've learned the lessons and you're doing it well.
Well, I hope so. But that doesn't mean that I always get it right, because you can still get fooled.
You can still get, I tell people, if you have a good hiring system, and there's a few out there which I like a lot, we happen to have one that works really well, and your hiring success is less than 85%, you need to look at your system. 15% of the time, I don't care how good you are, you're going to make hiring errors.
Yeah.
And
And
when
I
you
think
make a
it's
hiring
important.
error,
What
I
do?
want to,
You rectify it quickly.
yes,
That's what I do.
absolutely. If you find a person's not working, you hold up your hand, say, I really apologize. This is my fault. I didn't do the right job screening you, but you're not a good fit here. And you know it, and I know it. And it's probably best for us to separate.
And when you do that, you know what's interesting? It's everybody breathes a sigh of relief because everyone knows when you've got someone in that isn't quite fitting. It's
Yes.
very obvious to everyone.
And then you have the brilliant jerks, which are people who
Oh,
you've hired who are unbelievably competent at what they do. They're often salespeople, but they're impossible to get along with. And by the time you get around to firing them, after you're done, you're going to have a line outside your door with people saying, what took you so long? And
I know.
my answer to them always was, gee, there's something below your nose that goes up and down.
And as much as you quote give people the freedom to come in your door and ask, why are you doing this? A lot of times people don't have the confidence to do it.
No, they
They'll
want to,
quickly repeat it.
they want to tell you what you want to hear, not what they think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the truth.
You
So
know, yeah.
unfortunately, Cynthia, we are out of time.
Well,
It goes by
it was a
fast.
great conversation. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. I hope you did.
I did too. I hope our listeners got some great value. I'm sure they did, because there's some nuggets in here I hope they take to heart. Well,
Well, I hope
Cynthia,
so.
if somebody wanted to talk to you or find out more about your company, what would they do and how would they do it?
There's a couple of ways. Probably the easiest way is to go to Cynthia Kay, Kay, biz.com. And they can just reach out, and I'm really good about answering people, or Cynthia at thinkck.com. But love to talk with people and share ideas and hopefully help some people along the way because I know I had a lot of help as well.
Cool. And I've got two things I'd like you to do. First is go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and give us an honest rating and review. If you love us, you can give us 5 stars. If you hate us, you can give you a 1 star, and I'll just cry a little bit. I promise. I won't cry a lot.
No.
And the second thing is, if you like this podcast and you own a business and you think you have some great lessons to share, like Cynthia does, which, by the way, she was very brave to talk about things that went wrong in her business. Many people are not willing to do that. All you have to do is send me an email at jpatrick@stage2solution.com. That's the number 2, and solution is singular. So it's jpatrick@stage2solution.com. Tell me you were listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. And you also would love to be a guest on this show, and we can have a conversation to see if it's right for both of us. So this is Josh Patrick. We're with Cynthia Kay. You're at the 50/50 Accelerator podcast. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.